Hello and welcome to the third and the Don Football Show. I am Joe. With me is Cecil, as always, here to talk about some NFL football. Cecil, the regular season is over. The playoffs are here. There's a lot to talk about. Black Monday already happened, and that extended into this Wednesday as we're recording. How are you doing, first of all?
I'm doing great. I mean, it's playoff time, baby. There's nothing better on this earth than NFL playoffs to me. March Madness is awesome. It's a great little, like a great tournament because of all the upsets. But when it comes to just pure, like, just grit and trying to get to the Super Bowl, there's nothing quite like it.
I'll disagree with you on that one, but we'll keep it moving here anyway. Let's go with our recap first. We have a lot to get to with the recap, and then also the coaches that have been fired. We'll talk about those a little bit as we go along. Mason Rudolph is the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL. 152 yards, one touchdown for the Steelers on Saturday. So you didn't have to do too much, but really, this game was already at hand. The Ravens had benched their starters, all the guys who were important. That's their backups usually play pretty well. We see their preseason exploits all the time, but the Steelers get the win. They make the playoffs as a result of other things going their way on Sunday. So this is what I don't have too much to add. It's nice that the Steelers for the Steelers that Mason Rudolph is pushing the ball downfield and they're able to run the ball now.
Yeah, it's great they're pushing the ball downfield. It's great they got to play the Baltimore Ravens backups at the end of the season to make the playoffs. So a lot of nice things happened for the Steelers this year. So first, the last team in, yeah, it basically look a lot better. And honestly, it's made Najee Harris look a lot better too, because that guy was basically dead on arrival for about pretty much three-fourths of the season, and then suddenly over the last probably 4 or 5 games, he's finally just came onto the scene. Rushing for 100 yards, big chunk plays, touchdowns. I feel bad for that guy in fantasy that was waiting for that for the entire season and make the playoffs because of it. Um, but that's why you don't draft him like everyone advised you not to. So, first look better. Is that going to be enough? We'll see. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But they get an easy win against a bunch of backups in a game that didn't mean anything to the other team in a monsoon.
Yes, definitely was some bad weather going on there. Props to Mike Tomlin and I guess John Harbaugh, both these coaches in this game, but just been doing it for a long time, and now are the longest tenured head coaches. We think with Bill Belichick, we'll get to that in a little bit here too, but probably the longest tenured head coaches by the time next season starts. So we'll keep tracking that and see how these two teams do in the playoffs. The Ravens having the 1 seed, the Steelers having the 7. Another important thing, Cease, TJ Watt is going to be out for this playoff game. He got hurt in this game. They needed to play him because they had to win, but just something to keep track of as we go into the wild card round when they play the Bills. The other game on Saturday, though, Cease, we had the Texans beat the Colts 23-19. The Colts ran the ball pretty well. Jonathan Taylor was running all over the Texans defense, but C.J. Stroud, man, he just had a great rookie season. He's already pushing towards top 10 quarterback in the league. We're both Stroud boys. When he plays, they're a very good team. D'Amico Ryan's very good rookie head coach. Nico Collins has been coming out of nowhere to be a really good receiver for them. 9 catches for 195 yards and a touchdown. I'm excited to see what CJ Stroud can do in these playoff seasons.
Yeah, we are both huge Stroud boys here, and CJ Stroud showing why we are. I mean, he pushes the ball downfield, but he's also smart with the football a lot of times. He'll take what the defense gives him. If it's zone coverage, got to keep, throwing short passes. He'll do it. He'll drive down the field. And as soon as you make a mistake, he can just throw it downfield like it's nothing. So he also made some plays with a little bit of functional mobility he has. It's not anything crazy, like a Justin Fields or anything like that, but he can move around the pocket, and he can, if he needs a first down, he'll go get it if somebody's just playing a deep zone on him. So I think he played extremely well. That's a decent game. That's been a big key to their offense is ever since they pretty much got rid of using Damian Pierce all the time and just gave Singletary the ball most of the game. It's really helped there. Like you said, Noah Brown has been great. Really failing in for Tank Dell, which was a huge loss for them. They seem to have overcome it, and between him and Dalton Schultz, they have some options at the receivers and tight end position. But yeah, I think they in this game. Gardner Minshew didn't do anything. He really struggled. didn't even get close to 200 yards passing in this one, and pretty much it was just all Michael Pittman almost the entire time. He just kind of tried to focus on him. He couldn't connect with Alec Pierce, I think, once. So it's just a very not great, passing game by any means. So I think it's something Shane Steichen needs to improve on, in this offseason is whoever the quarterback is. It's going to be Anthony Richardson, but they need to push the ball. And, they got to distribute the ball amongst the receivers a little more because they have talented guys there. So don't waste maximum talent. Josh possessed over the last couple of weeks. It's good to see him come back to form. This is going to be a good Colts team next year. I'm not going to say it's going to be elite. It's going to be a hard division. In the AFC South with the Jaguars and Texans, it's not going to be a gimme for them. But I think if Richardson comes back healthy and takes a step forward, they can be a team that necessarily want to play every week.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The AFC South could be a pretty competitive division next year. We have just teams we didn't really expect to be this good, and like you said, Anthony Richardson coming back. But excited, as we said earlier, to see CJ Stroud in the playoffs. Let's move it on to Sunday, Cease. We have the Bengals beating the Browns 31-14. Now the Browns rested their starters, wasn't much to play for. The Bengals get the win. A couple of their guys have some good games, but we've been preparing for the offseason for a couple weeks now, so there wasn't much about that. The biggest news of this game was Jake Browning's girlfriend in Joe Burrow's box, and not just like, okay, they show her a couple times. They show her a lot like she's Taylor Swift, and then people go nuts on Twitter. The Bengals radio analyst, Dave Lapham, I mean, he's just going, he's like barking in the box, like how much nuts he's going. It was one of those weird times where it's like, yeah, Jake Browning's an NFL quarterback, and he's probably going to, date attractive ladies and stuff. It was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. That people were just so, I don't want to say like they were so down bad that they were obsessing over. Like, she's very pretty and everything, but it got to a level of like, okay, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it got a little weird. This might go down in the AJ McCarron national championship game. Jarrett Stidham's girlfriend last year, when he played that like 1-2 games with the Raiders. I think it's just like the World Cup or all these sporting events. It's just like they don't know enough, and the general audience watching it doesn't know enough about these back care enough. So they just throwing shots of pretty ladies in. Is that right? I don't know. It's a weird decision. I'm here to watch football, but it's a lot of people are watching it. I mean, the Bengals beat the hell out of the Browns, so I mean, you might as well show the backup quarterback. I mean, it's supposed to be the backup quarterback and his like fan base and family that never get to ever really celebrate anything because you're the backup QB. But so they got the moment in the sun, but it did get a little weird, especially listening to it on radio because it was just I've never, they really talk about especially when you're a play-by-play guy, you don't want dead air time. But Dan Horde, the play-by-play guy from the Bengals, I think was just in utter shock because there was straight up about 10 seconds of just dead silence. Just nothing said and just the most awkward transition from it 10 seconds later, like it wasn't said. So one of the all-time Dave Lapham color comments. There are some other great ones that we're not going to repeat them here on the podcast. Come up, they're always something. But yeah, Bengals win. It doesn't really mean suck. I can tell you that much. But it'll be interesting to see what the Bengals are able to do this offseason. They have a lot of cap room. They got a lot of expiring contracts that keep position. So it's going to be an interesting offseason for them, and I'm interested to see if they learn anything from since Joe Burrow went down and they run this offense and these packages a little different than they were before he went down. So we'll have to see for the Bengals next year, but it's about who made it now at this point.
Yeah, we're going to be tracking this offseason for the Bengals specifically. I think there's a lot of options with what they can do. Yes, they're going to have a lot of contracts tied up. But when you have $80 million in cap space for next year, you can pay T. Higgins, you can save money for Jamar Chase, you can maybe sign some 1-year deals and have a run of the Super Bowl like we want to see. So excited for this Bengals offseason, as much as it pains me to say that they're not going to be in the playoffs after going 9-8, and they have the 18th pick in the draft, which is the last pick out of the teams who did not make the playoffs. So that is also not the greatest. But we'll digress and keep on going. Sees the Lions beat the Vikings 30-20. Nick Mullen started for the Vikings in this one, did what he always does, throws 2 touchdowns, but also throws 2 interceptions. The Lions went up early in this one. They have the running game at top 5 in the league where they can just, if they get up, they'll just run the ball and do a good job with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. So a good win for them. They were kind of playing their starters in this game because they if the Eagles and Cowboys both lost, they could be the number 2 seed. Didn't end up working out that way. Dan Campbell, not a guy who would like to bench his starters anyway. Sam Laporta did get banged up in this game, and there's an outside chance he plays they're in the wild card game. But I can't blame Dan Campbell for playing the starters, knowing that you could move up a seed and have home field advantage till the NFC Championship game if you win and some other teams lose.
Right. I mean, you got to play. You got to play out all the scenarios because you feel like a real idiot if you sat your starters and then the Eagles and the Cowboys both lose. You'd feel really stupid at that point. So I mean, they went for it. You know, they weren't doing crazy things. Sam Laporta did get hurt. That sucks. Yeah, maybe time. But at the end of the day, win it. I think they really wanted to wash the bad taste out of their mouth after what happened with the whole 2-point conversion scandal 2 weeks ago. So I think they try to rewrite the ship here, get ready for the playoffs. I think they're a team that, they can just eat clock. And I think, they're not beaten down that much because they haven't had a crazy hard schedule either. So I think they're going to be ready to go for the playoffs. It does suck with Sam Laporta probably not playing this week. But it's just, it's something that happens in the NFL. Week in and week out, people are going to get hurt. If it's a 1 week injury, it could have been a lot worse. And, all they got to do is win this game, and he'll probably be back in the lineup for them when they're really going to need it. So, Lions kind of cruise here. Vikings kind of been doing what they've been doing all season, where it's just can score a lot of points, but also give up a lot of points. And, they're just kind of at a weird place this offseason with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson's going to have to get paid a lot of money. So we'll see how that all shakes out as well because there's a lot of variables with that team.
Yeah, definitely a lot of variables with that team, and maybe they'll take take a quarterback with their pick too. There's a lot to figure out in the Lions. We'll see what they do in the wild card round. You're right. Laporta probably not going to play. I'd be very surprised at the way his knee looked like it bent. But a couple weeks could do him some good. So if they could win this game, it would be really good to see him back. All right, the AFC South matchup. The Titans beat the Jaguars 28-20. A little bit of an upset here. Derrick Henry has his vintage game against the Jaguars. 19 carries, 153 yards, and a touchdown. He, after the game, kind of said a farewell to the fans. He kind of expects this to be his last run with the Titans, so that was kind of good to see him go out on a high note. The Jaguars have one of the biggest collapses I've seen in my history of doing this. It's just all downhill after we thought they could get the 1 seed like a month and a half ago. So that's just something they have to figure out. And honestly, don't really have many words for that. And then on Tuesday, the Titans decided to fire Mike Vrabel. Not something I really agree with. He had a couple down years here. But really, the roster wasn't really that good. And I don't think that was all his fault because he's just the coach. And he did have some roster decisions this year, but it was just this year. That's kind of crazy. And then the owner, I think her name is Amy Adams Strunk, said, "We didn't want to trade Mike Vrabel because it could take a couple weeks." That's, to me, very lazy from an owner to not want to trade. If you can get a pick back, even if it's like a 3rd-round pick, 4th-round pick, if you can get something back for your coach who 25 NFL teams might want, or at least maybe they don't want him because they just signed someone, but all the coaches who have open spots, at least 6 or 7 teams, would want him, then maybe you should try to trade him. That's just my thought.
Yeah. First off, congrats on either the intentional or unintentional Derrick Henry's last run as a running back. Two, yeah. I mean, the Jaguars, they got no one to blame for this missing the playoffs but themselves. I mean, Trevor Lawrence does not look right. He's tossing interceptions, making bad throws. It has to be the injury. It's weird because it doesn't do or anything like that. It just seems like he's just not feeling it, and that can be an issue, especially with your quarterback. Made some key mistakes, especially Trevor Lawrence. So that's unfortunate. He gets kind of the blame in this game. But again, the Titans offense has barely done anything all year, and the Jaguars defense didn't do anything. So they deserve to go home. This is one where they played a lot of, in a row for the playoff chances. Sends them home. In multiple weeks, they could have clinched this, and they just didn't. So that sucks for them. Titans, it's going to be a looking team. I think I don't necessarily like the firing. I think you leave him out there, try to get a trade done. Um, I think the team does need some new offensive minds though. And I don't know if you can really get that in a in a offensive coordinator right now. Offense is coming at a premium in the NFL, especially guys that can kind of be that guy on the offense where you don't have a head coach doing it basically. So I can see the organization wanting someone that's offense first to develop Will Levis and figure out what they're going to do because right now there's not a lot of solutions and to be honest, the defense hasn't been doing as well as they probably should with some of the guys that have been on that team in recent years. And I love Mike Vrabel, but the reality is he hasn't really won anything at all, and it's a league where guys get fired for things that aren't necessarily fair and I would have kept him around personally because what are you going to replace him with? We'll see. But it's just kind of one of those. It's not that he's not getting them over the hump, and I don't know what they kind of want and what they're going to have to do. Kind of a lot of rebuilding here. I feel like because this isn't just a simple solution, and it really hasn't been for the last couple years.
Yeah, I get the fresh start thing. I just would have said if you wanted a fresh start, then try to trade him, get something back to help with that fresh start. So for the Titans, it's going to be a new look, everything next year. It might be Ryan Tannehill will probably be gone, Derrick Henry will be gone, Mike Vrabel will be gone, and they're really going to have to fix that offensive line too to give Will Levis a chance to be successful because he did look good in spurts, but with that offensive line being so bad, it's not very sustainable. So they have an offseason to look forward to of a lot of change. The Jaguars need to regroup somehow after that. They've had last year in the playoffs they're able to pull off that big comeback against the Chargers. A lot of hype going into this year and just totally fell on their face. So a lot to figure out for that. The New York Jets beat the New England Patriots 17-3 in a bad weather snowy game. No one was throwing the ball that much. Breece Hall ran the ball 37 times, 178 yards, and one touchdown for a huge game. Bill Belichick had made a career out of dominating the Jets, but that is now over. When asked after the game what was going to go on, Bill Belichick said, "I might step down from some of my responsibilities," which most people thought could be the GM stuff he does, but still no coaching change officially. So both these teams aren't going to be in the playoffs. Both these teams currently are going to go forward with their head coaches. 3 days after the season. I don't know. I guess that's good for both. I don't know. I thought maybe a change of scenery for Bill was coming.
Yeah, it's a weird. You got a Hall of Fame coach, right? Like same thing with like an older veteran player or star. It's kind of a weird moment to go. Maybe we should go away from somebody who's brought us as a franchise so much success, right? Um, I think if Bill is willing to let someone else be GM again, I think that's when they had the best GM. Tom Brady kept them very relevant and very good for a long time past that point. I think finding a guy that can at least be a voice of reason and be in charge of personnel and instead of Bill just telling everyone what he's going to do, I think it can work, honestly, because I think Bill Belichick, he knows how to coach a defense. He's really good at defense. I know there's been some issues and they have some aging people on that team. But the real reality has been they haven't used their money wisely in the cap when they made these signings. A lot of tight ends and weird stuff going on there. And it's just a carousel of who's coaching the offense every year. And really, the GM should really have some more say and will really create something that maybe has a semblance of looking like a functional franchise again. Because right now, Bill is just doing it all, and that's not always great. Bill is a great coach. Bill's a Hall of Famer, but the reality is he's not a general manager. And it's shown for the last probably 10 years and he's not. He's made weird draft picks. He's made weird signings, and I don't know what it is. If he's just trying to reinvent the wheel here, but the reality is he's taken too many swings to let him keep getting up to the plate. So I think there's a world where if he truly accepts this and isn't going to try to just basically disregard or fight everything that a GM or somebody else in charge does, I think it can work.
Yeah, I don't know. I think once you're the guy and have all that in charge, I don't know if that's something you're going to want to do. I can't wait till the GM says, no, we can't hire your friend Matt Patricia to be the offensive coordinator just because he's out of a job. Like, can you imagine the arguments that'll be had of like the GM saying like, Bill, this is stupid, and Bill being like, well, I've won this many Super Bowls and done this many things for the Patriots. Like, I don't know. I think that could be tough, but you're right. The biggest Achilles heel for Bill Belichick isn't necessarily the X's and O's or anything. It's just player evaluation, and that's something the GM could help out with. Let's move on to the Saints beating the Falcons 48-17. Both these teams showed up a little bit too little, too late to make the playoffs. The Saints finished 9-8. We expected them to be a team that could make the playoffs. Their offense never really fully got going. Dennis Allen has had a rough year as head coach. Now, to get to the drama at the end of the game is a lot of fun. Jameis Winston goes into the game. You know, they're trying to get Jamal Williams a touchdown. Jamal hasn't had a touchdown, and they're trying to get him a touchdown because they're trying to buy into the whole team thing. Well, let's get this guy going, and Jameis is a guy who will fight for his guys. So Dennis Allen calls for the victory formation. The team votes to do a handoff, a fake knee handoff to Jamal Williams to get him a touchdown. Could be seen as rubbing them, nose in it, winning 48-7 after this. But the team decided to do it. It was a team decision on the field. After the game, Arthur Smith goes nuts on Dennis Allen for this decision. Turns out Arthur Smith gets fired after this game, not because of this decision. I mean, it was coming anyway, especially with all the fantasy people going to burn down his house basically if he didn't get fired. And then we had Dennis Allen after the game saying, this is not what I called. I didn't say victory formation. And then you had Jameis saying, yeah, we made a team decision. So there's a whole mess here. Dennis Allen is being kept on as Saints head coach, which is weird in itself because you had a bad season. Your team took till week 17 or 18 to reach their full potential. Your team basically said they just did whatever the heck they wanted, which I agree. I love what the players did, but that's just still kind of crazy. And then on the other side, the other guy gets fired. We kind of saw that one coming because Arthur Smith has just done a terrible job with the Falcons.
Right. Like imagine, for example, most NFL organizations, or let's pick our last example. Imagine if some players did that on a Bill Belichick team. What would happen to them? Like they probably, I don't even know what would happen. Like, is there something worse than just being cut the next day? Like that's kind of the level. Like it's a respect thing. I get like your coach is calling victory formation. The game's over. Just end it, right? Like it's just like why are you risk? Because somebody could get hurt. It's just stupidness, right? It's fun. That's great, but the reality is like you just like went against what your coach told you to do. And yeah, you can audible plays and things like that in game situations, so you see something different. But the reality is like it is very just it doesn't look great. It looks like it's just a disorganized mess where any player can just do whatever the hell they want, and there's not going to be repercussions for it. I mean, if I'm Dennis Allen, I mean, what am I going to do the next day? Am I going to sit there? I mean, I'd be pissed. I'd be like, I got chewed out, coach, because you guys just decided you can just do whatever the hell you want. Like, if it was another level of football, I mean, you'd want to talk about like discipline and things like that. That's what be happening. It just be that's the reality of other levels of the sport. But in the NFL, you can't really do that, and it's just it's a respect thing because you're professionals, right? And, everyone has their job to do, and they just kind of disregarded that. So I don't know what the Saints team's going to look like. Derek Carr's still the quarterback, I guess. I just don't see any end in sight to the mediocrity is the problem.
Yeah, they have to. I think they should fire Dennis Allen. I think they should restart. They're the team that kind of manipulates the cap the most and kind of puts them in a position where it's not a fresh restart. And I think that the team that needs it the most is probably the Saints. So They're going to run it back next year, and maybe in the NFC South, if no one improves again, maybe they can have a shot to win it, especially if they start off the year a little bit hotter and some guys don't get injured. But yeah, it's just a weird situation for the Saints, weird situation for the Falcons. We'll see what goes on there. It's kind of be an attractive coaching position for the Falcons. A lot of young talent on that team, and probably a chance to maybe move up in the draft and draft a quarterback or sign someone in free agency. The other NFC South game, Cease, we had the Buccaneers beating the Panthers 9-0. It was boring. There's nothing to talk about. The Buccaneers did their job. They got to the playoffs, but boy, was that a bad NFL game.
Yeah, he could have used a little more pizzazz going in the playoffs instead of just not being able to punch the ball in the end zone. Um, it was just kind of, Baker. If anything, they should have just tried because I get they don't want to lose the game, but the reality is like this is they need to ratchet it up before the playoffs. It's that simple, and it just it was gross. It was a gross looking game, and I get the Panthers are good against, especially against passing offenses. It was just a very middling performance, and yeah, we're going to talk about a two teams that just look like crap going into their matchup. We'll get to the Buccaneers Eagles game here in a little bit.
Yes, we will. It's gonna be a fun one, I think, to watch. For people who aren't fans of those teams, if you're fans of those teams, you might have a little bit of struggle watching that game, but for the rest of us, might have some fun. The last of the 1 p.m. games is the other NFC North game. Sees we had the Packers beating the Bears 17-9. That helps them get into the playoffs. Jordan Love has looked really good, especially down the stretch. 316 yards, 2 touchdowns in this game. Aaron Jones decides to step on the gas the last several weeks of the season. Doesn't help me with my fantasy season because it's way past fantasy regular season time, and I miss the playoffs. But he does it at the end. I love Aaron Jones. He's just a great player. I think he had the most rushing yards through the last 4 weeks of the season or something like that. So they get the win. The Bears finished 7-10. Good season for them. They have the number 1 pick. They can either trade that, take Caleb Williams. We talked about that before. They've decided the only coaching change they're going to make is they got rid of Luke Getsy. They decided to keep Matt Eberflus. They're going to have Justin Fields will have an uphill battle of learning with the new offensive coordinator unless they're going to draft Caleb Williams. But I think that's probably the right call. We've had our complaints with Getsy. Eberflus, I think, has shown improvement as a team. The offense just hasn't taken that step forward.
Right. I think the Bears defense has definitely gotten better. But yeah, the reality is, I mean, I'm not a big fan of keeping Eberflus because I feel like sometimes he's too busy with the defense to actually figure out what's going on with the offense, who's the struggling part of the team. That's kind of the one criticism, but I mean, that's what happened. Coaches, the reality is they're going to have a lot of focus on one side of the ball because that's who they have to actually see and figure things out for. Same thing with play calling head coaches for the offense. I mean, it can be fixed if they find a guy who, and usually the formula has been young offensive head coach who calls plays and some really old school, old defensive coordinator who has head coaching experience or has been, a well respected coordinator in the league for a long time. Tom McVay and Wade Phillips back in, the early ends and when they went to a Super Bowl and that Rams defense was absolutely dominant. I mean, it's harder because the offensive guys, there's not as many old guys, which is kind of weird to say. It's not a lot of old school offensive coordinators because it's such a changing position. So I don't know if you get the same type of thing, but find some young up and comer somewhere to really manage this offense and really be in control of it. Because reality is Eberflus isn't going to be making most of those calls. Where do you get that guy? I don't really know. It's diamond in the rough, right? Because usually those guys within an organization don't usually leave. And if they do, they leave because they're going to get head coaching jobs, and they go pretty quick, and a lot of them go way before they're even ready to. So that's a heck of a hunt for an offensive coordinator. And again, college and the NFL is weird too, so you don't really get to stoke the fire as much there because it's a different kind of game. But yeah, so good luck for the Bears. The Packers have been rolling. They played really well their last 2 games. Those 2 games have been the Bears and the Vikings. So glean from it what you will. Some gung-ho Packers fans are very suddenly in a different mood. if anything, as someone who likes the Packers, I'm kind of bummed out because this is another season of Joe Barry. It's more, I don't like Matt LaFleur. I just don't like him. I don't think he's really that good of a head coach. Um, we'll see if this middling team, if Jordan Love and the very mediocre Packers do something. We'll get to those picks here in a little bit, but just nothing about this team is ever going to excite me. And that's the problem is you can't be a very middling team in the NFL or you will die on the vine like Vikings have over the last probably 5 years. So that's where the Packers are. They're the new Vikings.
Oh boy, they're not gonna like you saying that, Cease. But
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And the team they're gonna be playing in the first round is the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys win 38-10 over the Commanders. This was a blowout. Nothing to talk about there. The important thing for the Cowboys is they lock up the 2 seed. They have home field advantage until the NFC Championship when they would be in San Francisco unless San Francisco loses. The Commanders, on the other hand, have decided to fire Ron Rivera, but we've talked about him being a lame duck coach for the last month or two, even the whole season, really, since ownership changed. You knew it was coming unless they did something crazy like won the NFC East. And even if they made the playoffs, it wasn't even like a guarantee he would stay as coach. So, they're going to be going through the process of trying to find the next guy. It'll probably be a more attractive location to be the head coach at now that Dan Snyder is not in charge, but still a lot of unknowns with Washington and for the Cowboys. Like I said, it's good to get the home games. That's all I got to say after the team went 4-5 on the road this season.
Yeah, it's definitely important for them. Also important that this didn't become some kind of weird trap game, which is very vintage cowboy thing to happen where weather's not great, it's a rival, it's on the road, it's a surefire, we're gonna beat the hell out of this team, and next thing you know, they're fighting for their lives. That's typical Cowboys trap game, and they overcame it. They didn't let that happen. They kept a single focus. They played well on offense. Their defense played. I mean, they played well in all facets of the game, and they should be ready to go for the playoffs.
I think they should be too, and hopefully they at least take care of business with the home games and win more than one playoff game. It'd be nice to get to an NFC Championship at some point, ever at this point for people who are around my age. So, Cowboys Packers will be the pick we make later. Moving on with the 4 p.m. games, the Raiders beat the Broncos 27-14. This is like a terrible game in the sense of Jared Stidham starting against Aiden O'Connell. Antonio Pierce does a really good job down the stretch to get the Raiders to 8-9. They're still seeming like they're going to interview a bunch of people, like including maybe Jim Harbaugh is like a big rumor right now. Sean Payton, the big news with them right now is that Russell Wilson, it's not an end all be all. He might come back next year, which is very awkward if he does come back. So both these teams have a lot to figure out, but they don't, these teams aren't going to the playoffs, so I don't have much to say because I don't even know where they're going to be, like in the next week. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Antonio Pierce should probably be the coach. Um, Broncos had a weird ass season, and the Raiders. What is fascinating me is where the Raiders, if they sign someone like Jim Harbaugh, where the hell are they getting the money for all these head coaches? Because they still are paying John Gruden, I'm pretty sure. Josh McDaniels didn't come cheap. What the hell are they going to pay Jim Harbaugh to leave Michigan? Um, I for a team that like as of like 5 years ago when the Khalil Mack trade went down and it basically being because they didn't have any money to put in escrow because of the move to Vegas. I don't know where this sudden money flow is coming from, but maybe Mark Davis has had some fun at some of the local casinos and maybe he's feeling lucky. So who knows?
That's the only thing. I think he's playing the slots. See, so he just hit it big one of these times. You saw pictures of him like on a date or something where he was like just sitting at the slots, and he must have hit it big that night. So we'll see what he does. I would stick with Antonio Pierce and just he would be a cheaper option because he's an interim coach. He's not like you have to go buy him out from Michigan or pay someone and lure them away. He's already there. So that's what I would do. But we'll see what happens. These two teams have very interesting futures coming very soon. Next one up, we have the Giants beating the Eagles 27-10. Tyrod Taylor has 297 yards and a touchdown. The Eagles have some injuries in this game and end up benching their starters when they find out that the Cowboys are likely going to win the game against the Commanders. A.J. Brown has an injury. Jalen Hurts has an injury. Sidney Brown, who was Chase Brown from the Bengals' brother, who both got drafted this year. He was the safety for the Eagles. All got hurt. Sidney Brown will probably not be playing in the playoffs. A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts will probably will be playing in the playoffs. Will be playing this week is what the expectation is. Cease, I will say really quickly, good for the Giants. Tyrod Taylor gives you something, and they probably going to have a new quarterback next year because they don't want to go with Daniel Jones. Wink Martindale has been fired, or they've parted ways because Brian Dable fired some of his right hand men on defense, and Wink hated that, so he hopped on a flight to Sarasota. There's pictures of him on Twitter. He's just going to Sarasota, and he has like all the stuff he wears on the sideline every week. It's the same thing. He's not like dressed in like a Hawaiian shirt or anything. It's really cool. For the Eagles, they are a bad football team. They are terrible. They are bad. They could beat the Bucks because it's the Bucks. It's NFC South. But otherwise, I don't know if I'd take them to beat anyone in the playoffs, NFC, AFC. We just talked about the Bears. I think I would take the Bears straight up on a neutral field right now over the Eagles. They are bad.
Yeah, I mean they're bad. I mean, you take them. All right, you know what? I'd love to see that. I'd love to put some money down and enjoy that.
Okay.
Remember week one when I said the Eagles covering like 5 points was like a lock of the week, can't miss bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was true. It did hit. It did 100%. So all you out there that think that the Eagles are trash, I can't believe the things he said. We didn't know they were trash, and they weren't necessarily trash until this. I don't know. Like they've been dancing on this line for so long. It's hard to when this happened. Are they always frauds? Were they secretly this whole season garbage? What's that mean for all the other teams that they played in?
I don't know. I don't know what to say, Cease, but I'm excited for this football game on Monday night that you mentioned earlier. I think it'll be, in a way, we like good football. I think for a playoff game, it could be a chance to be a shit show, and I just love that. We have a coach who might be fired, Nick Sirianni, because of how he's maybe, I don't know, lost the locker room, lost coaching football in the last month and a half. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, yeah, the Giants get the win. Good for them. We'll see Wink Martindale in Sarasota in a couple weeks, maybe. But next game up, we have the Seahawks beating the Cardinals 21-20. Didn't end up mattering. The Packers won, and they get in the playoffs. They had to come from behind to get this win. But the bigger news out of this game for these teams, Pete Carroll is basically forced out of the coaching job and into the front office. He had a press conference where he was like, no, I fought to keep this job. I wanted to be the coach. I met with the players on Monday. I thought I was the coach. And then the Seahawks today decided to say, no, you're not the coach. You're getting moved to the front office. So Pete seems like he's kind of pissed. One, upset. Two, three, still wants to be coaching. And I like Pete. I think, so like you mentioned, Cecil, before the show, like, some of the drafts have been weird. He's gotten better at some of the drafts the last couple of years. A lot of that is John Schneider, the GM, and not him. I'm sure he has some input. But he's got so much energy for a 72-year-old. He's more energetic than some of these 35-year-old coaches that are getting hired for the first time. I'm going to be so sad not to see Pete Carroll on the sidelines next year. That's going to be something I'm going to miss.
Like, I would much rather, besides, like, we want to talk about head coaching candidates and guys, vacancies. I'd take Mike Vrabel or Pete Carroll over a lot of the like Ben Johnson. Like Ben Johnson is good. I mean, the Alliance offense has done a lot of stuff, but also there's been some stupid ass play calling at the same time. For some reason Ben Johnson is like the gift of the earth of this coaching cycle for some reason. I think he's good. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's this coordinator. You never know until somebody really puts on the headset, so to speak, and is the one call and making all those decisions. So I don't know. I think there's other guys that have proven in this league that they can coach, and I'd much rather have than some random coordinator be my head coach.
I think I would too. I mean, proven winners in the NFL are tough to find, and I guess Vrabel, you can kind of maybe the argument that is he a winner, is he not a winner because of the last 2 seasons? But Pete Carroll, man, if that guy still wants to coach, it's not like this is an NFL job. Like, people can help him out with the personnel. People can help him out with the X's and O's and everything. He can show up and still be a very good head coach. It's not like college football where you have to recruit in the offseason. There's no breaks, like spring practice, and then this and that and that. Like, I'm so sad that he's not going to be there. So I'm with you. I take both those guys over 25-ish coaches in the league. I think there's about 7 or 8 I would take over them, maybe, but that might be it. So just something to think about as we move ahead. Maybe Pete takes another job in the NFL, and one of these openings he just gets enticed by. So we'll see. All right, a game that did not matter as well. We had the Chiefs beating the Chargers 13-12. Cease. The backups were in for the Chiefs. Chris Jones did play to get an incentive in his contract, so there's that. But the Chargers had Easton Stick at quarterback still. It was a bad game. It's whatever at this point. It's just at the end of the season they're gonna have some duds like this. The NFL will.
Yeah, I didn't care about this game for a second, and I have literally nothing to say about it. So
Hell yes, that's exactly what I want to hear, Cease. The Rams beat the 49ers 21-20 in the other NFC West matchup that we mentioned, the Pete Carroll matchup before. Again, did not matter. Both teams had benched some starters. Carson Wentz gets some action in this one and actually has a lot of carries, 17 carries in this game. Did not matter though. Rams win 21-20. Cool for Sean McVay, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, it's fun to watch the 49ers offense still be really good with like none of their actual starters. Like watching Sam Darnold and their backup running back Jordan Mason like put up numbers and just have these really good runs and just like dominant performances. It's just fun to watch and be like, wow, this team just this feels like a machine. Like it really does. And it's what you gotta love about Kyle Shanahan. So we'll see by the end of this playoffs, and you gotta see who the guru.
Hmm. It's true. A long-seated debate for us of who the guru is. I'm with you, see. Sam Darnold will be. I mean, if Brock Purdy goes down, they'll have Sam Darnold this year in the NFC Championship. We could see Sam Darnold possibly in the Super Bowl if Brock Purdy has one injury. I'm not wishing that on anyone, but last year it obviously happened where all their quarterbacks got hurt. So just the crazy times we're in. If Sam Darnold does get to that point, maybe shows you sometimes it's about the organization and not the player. It's just one of those things. All right, the last game of the NFL regular season, the Bills beat the Dolphins 21-14. That wins them the AFC East. That gets them the number 2 seed in the AFC. Not something we really thought we would say, given how the Bills were kind of about 5 weeks ago where they were and how they were playing, and even how they're playing now isn't the greatest. It's still up and down, but got the job done here. It was impressive for me, Cease, because I thought Dolphins were winning this game at halftime 14-7, and then for the longest time they were kind of holding on. Then there's a punt return touchdown, and it all went to shit, and they ended up losing the game. Just a bad collapse for the Dolphins. They don't really, as we mentioned, didn't beat too many good teams on the year. So there's a lot of concern going into the playoffs, and then obviously with the matchup they have, which we'll get to here later. For the Bills, this is very important because I'm not out on the Bills. I'm not totally in on the Bills, but they have home field advantage until the AFC Championship game, and that could be huge.
Right. There's one word for the Bills here that is going to matter in the playoffs, probably more than it does for any other team. Turnovers. Holy crap! The Bills were driving the ball. I mean, they were driving down the field the whole game. So it looked like the Dolphins were winning at halftime, but it was closer than it looked on the scoreboard because the reality is Josh Allen had an interception. Josh Allen had a really kind of bad looking strip fumble. It could have been a much worse game for the Dolphins than it was in the first half if they had not turned over the ball. So I think this Bills team, like you said, it worries me. When I look at everybody in the AFC right now, Ravens are probably the only team that has played complete football over the last couple weeks that you can feel confident in most games to be favored in. Everybody else out there, I don't know what the hell to expect. You want, Bill machine and possible. Then you've got the Kansas City Chiefs, where it's like, is Pat Mahomes ever gonna is he gonna throw for more than 270 yards ever again? Is he ever gonna hit 300? Are the receivers ever gonna catch a deep ball for him? Is Rashee Rice literally the only person on that team now? Question. A good team, it seems like. And Tua in this game looked awful in the second half. I mean, we're talking 2 bad interceptions that just did not it just looked like he's just trying to force stuff that is not there. He's not looking at the safety. It's just It's lazy. That's what it looks like. And for a guy who's played so well for so long, it's over these last couple of weeks, he's gotten a little desperate at times, and that's kind of concerning. So the Dolphins have a lot of question marks, and everybody on their defense is now hurt. Van Ginkel went down, so that's another key defensive starter that's down. All they need now is Jalen Ramsey to break his ankle in like the first drive of this playoff game, and they'll be complete. Um, Besides that, you have the Steelers who are utter garbage. They're not going anywhere. I'm not even going to try to say they do well. They don't do anything. They just got lucky, basically. And then entire playoff picture and the Browns. Browns have a Joe Flacco who could have a bad game at any moment, and they're completely relying on their defense dominating another team, and they aren't as good away as they are at home. So there's a whole breakdown for you. But the reality is the Bills, of all those, besides the Ravens, of all the other teams, I'd probably pick the Bills right now to beat any of those other teams. Because the reality is Josh Allen can lose them games, but Josh Allen can also win them. I don't want to sound like Chris Collinsworth or Tony Romo because I swear to God, it's some of the worst football commentating to ever listen to because they just act like Josh Allen is great. And, I mean, he can be really good. But the reality is they don't really ever get on him for the stupid turnovers that happen. And that's what upsets me. It's like, that's fine if you want to say that Josh Allen is a freak athlete. He is. But the reality is he makes stupid decisions with the football. Really stupid stuff. And if it was any other quarterback in the NFL, they'd be ripping him apart. And that's the sad thing. He's getting paired to John Elway, which I think is a fair comparison because the reality here is, I think, like we've talked about, John Elway is one of the more overrated quarterbacks in NFL history. And the reality is he is a lot like John Elway because John Elway choked away a lot of games and made a lot of stupid decisions a lot in his tenure before the very end of his career where they won those 2 Super Bowls. So, yeah, maybe it's an apt comparison, but not in the way you think it is. So, yeah, that's my Josh Allen rant. That being said, there's an early season bet with the Bills and 49ers making the Super Bowl, so I bought in. Bills Mafia. If I could get one of those Grand Poobah hats to put on, I would.
All right. Well, I will say, Cease, I do think the top seeds in each conference are like so heavily favored right now in most people's minds of like, all right, it'll be 49ers Ravens, right? But you're right. Teams 2 through 7, there is a lot of leeway. Anything could happen type of thing. There's teams that have been labeled frauds. There's teams that have had good times in the season, bad times, up and downs. It's going to be a fun NFL playoffs. If it ends up being 1 versus 1 in the Super Bowl, at least we'll have a good Super Bowl to talk about. But like in between that time and this, like this could be some fun games. So let's get to our picks for the wild card round here. The game that we're going to start with is Saturday. The Browns and Texans in Houston. Cleveland is favored by 2.5 on the road, Cease.
Yeah, I'm going to go with my Stroud roots here. I'm going to pick the Texans in the upset because I think quarterbacks, everyone says defense wins championships, but I think more importantly, having a quarterback gets you much further in the play. It's going to be a huge thing here, too. It's going to be in Texas, so they have the home field advantage. It's going to be in a dome. It's going to be nice. Again, that's something that Cleveland doesn't get to do as well with. A lot of Cleveland's dominant games this season have been in Cleveland where the weather has been utter trash. So it's going to be a little bit different for them. I think the Texans fan base is going to be fired up because, they've got no pressure on them, really. There's no pressure in the world on these guys because the reality is they just basically see South. I just think it could go. I mean, it's going to go either. I think it's going to be either. We're going to know early on this game what kind of game it's going to be, and if the Browns get up early, it's going to be probably that kind of dominant defensive performance all game. But C.J. Stroud's able to kind of avoid that pass rush with his mobility a little bit, which I think he can do. I think he can take advantage of some stuff in the kind of middle layer of the field and take some shots as well. And I think his mobility will limit Myles Garrett in that defense a little bit. So, and the Browns offense, it's gotten better a couple weeks because Joe Flacco see that there's a lot where everyone kind of just assumed, Joe Flacco is going to play this way through the playoffs. I mean, he has playoff experience, sure, but the reality is, I mean, he's he's prone to have a bad game. I think this is going to be the game. I think it's going to be a tough on the road game, and I think you make somebody 2.5 point dogs at home. That's a good bet to take. I mean, really, you take it 3.5. I mean, I think you should take that all day if it teases up because I have a feeling it might.
Yeah, same pick here. Houston to win. If you're going to give me points, I'm going to take them. This is all about the Stroud boys, all about CJ Stroud. 5 interceptions on the year. He only really had 1 or 2 bad games. That's not typical for a rookie. We really see rookies struggle most of the time. 4,000 yards passing, and this is in an NFL where like the leading passer in the league had like 4,600 yards. It wasn't a year where people had 5,000 yards passing. So he is the truth. He is good. D'Amico Ryans will be able to game plan pretty well for that defense. There are some holes on the defense, but some of their young guys, Derek Stingley mainly, have stepped up. I do think that their offensive line started off the year rough, but they've held up better than you would have expected, especially at the tackle spots. So Myles Garrett can be neutralized a little bit. Maybe you're not going to stop him completely anytime you play him, but I think the Texans can defend their home turf. And like you said, Cease, Joe Flacco, he's had interceptions this year. Like, it's not like he's played flawlessly. The Browns have been able to overcome a lot of that with the running game and defense. If there's a point where he needs to make plays, I trust the veteran in him, but sometimes he still makes interceptions. And the Browns still have a lot of injuries on the offensive line themselves, too. So I'll take the Texans at home. Could go. I think this game really is a coin flip. I'm not really understanding why Cleveland is favored by 2.5 on the road. I think it's probably closer to a pick 'em, but if they want to doubt the Stroud boys, everyone doubted the Stroud boys from the day one, man. Like we had Bryce Young as number 1 quarterback. Some people had them, and we had CJ Stroud. That's how it works. So Texans for both of us. The Saturday night game. Now, Cease, before we make our pick here, we have to say that it's on Peacock. It's only on Peacock. This is very stupid by the NFL to have a playoff game only done by Peacock, but they gave $110 million to be able to do this. Now, 2 things. One, I think the Swifties are going to go nuts because they have to figure out how to get Peacock and watch the game and everything. Number 2, everyone who's around our age can be the smart guy in their family. They can teach everyone, hey, you have to buy Peacock. This is how you set it up. You can't watch it on NBC, and then you get to act like you're smart because that's pretty cool. But now that we get to our pick, now that we've gone over that, Dolphins at Chiefs. Chiefs favored by 4.5 points. Now, Cease, the big story going into this game, I think both teams have kind of struggled down the stretch and everything, but the big story is the weather is projected to be -1. So a lot of fun with that one.
Are we getting weather, or is it just going to be that cold? Is it going to be just wind? Or are we expecting?
I think it's just that cold. I don't. That's the only thing the ESPN bug that we talked about all year has given me.
I haven't seen anything either. I just heard really cold. That's all I've been told. It's going to be cold. So with that all in mind, the weather is going to play a factor here. I think you got to go when it's this cold out. I think you got to go with the team that has the better defense, and that, especially with all the injuries Miami's had, is Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs to win this game. But 4.5 points is right in that wheelhouse where I like the Dolphins. So I'm going to take the points here with the Dolphins because I think that they can beat that spread basically or cover it. So I'm going to pick the Dolphins with the points, but I think Kansas City Chiefs, I think their defense plays really well. I think they're going to be more ready for these conditions than the Dolphins are. I mean, the reality is the Dolphins, if they can score 28 points, they can win this game. That's the reality of the Chiefs offense right now. I think if they can get to 28, they can win. Are they going to get to 28 points? I don't think so. They probably only maybe they get 1 or 24. I don't think they get 4 touchdowns. If they do, they win this. It's been really stingy this year. So let's beat the Chiefs and get Pat Mahomes out. But I just think with this weather, the way it is, and it being in Kansas City, something like that, I got to go with the home team with the victory.
I'm going Dolphins in the upset. I'm not going to abandon Tua quite yet. He did not have a great season at times, but he still threw for 4,600 yards, 29
It's 3
touchdowns.
straight weeks.
Hey, you know what? It's all right because I kind of have something in the back of my head here. There's a couple things. One, I think having Jalen Waddle out is huge. Um, he's going to be a difference maker in this. It opens up the field for more. If you look at their third through fifth receivers on this roster, it's arguable they should not be even on NFL Raw. You got Braxton Berrios. Sorry, Alex Earl, if you guys know who that is. You got Cedric Wilson, who has done nothing since being there. You got River Craycraft, who has the most fun name to say ever, from Washington State days back with Mike Leach. And God love him, but it's just not a great situation. And Chase Claypool, who we all love, I guess. So there's that. I think Jalen Waddle being back is huge. Raheem Mostert being back is huge. I kind of think Mike McDaniels maybe held on to a little bit for the playoffs this year. I think we'll have some more cool play designs like with Devin Achan. And I do think the run defense has been good. You're going to need to play good run defense against the Chiefs in the cold weather. And they also run the ball well. So I'm going to go Dolphins in the upset. I think the Chiefs, benching some of their starters, going to maybe be rusty to start the game. I think the Dolphins can take that early lead. And if they get the early lead, I think that's huge. I'm not, usually I'm a defer type of guy when you get the coin toss. In this game, if you're the Dolphins and kind of get the running game flowing and set up to it to have passes that are open, because the running game, everyone's stacking the box to stop the run, I think it is something you have to consider. So I'm going Dolphins in the upset. I could totally see the Chiefs winning this and then winning by 14 and me looking like a sucker. But I stick to my guys, Cease. You know what I do? I stick to my guys. 2-9s, the Stroud boys. I'll take them. Anyway. Let's move on to Sunday games. We have 3 on Sunday. We're going to start off with the Steelers and Bills, which is probably going to be the worst one of the day, at least projected by the betting lines. As mentioned, TJ Watt is not going to play for the Steelers in this one. It is in Buffalo. They'll be pretty rowdy. The Bills are favored by 10 points right now.
Yeah, give me that. Give me 10 points all day. Bills to win and cover. Maybe if you're parlaying this, maybe you get the 9.5. Get that way. It's want a stupid ass push on 10 points. If it's straight up, though, you should take 10 because worst case you get your money back. So I think it'll be more than that. I'm just there for all you gamblers. Don't get too greedy. It's the reality here. And every bet, don't get too greedy. Don't think that everybody's just gonna explode on your team. So, yeah. But the Bills are gonna dominate the Steelers. I think. Could I see Rudolph getting a long pass downfield? Sure. I think he gets one. But that's not going to be consistent offense. I think Rasul Douglas should be back for this after he kind of got some injuries in the Dolphins game. I believe he should be back, they said. And other than that, I think they've got a good front. I think Von Miller active in this game for the quarterback. And again, I think Josh Allen and the offense are just going to have a field day because reality is, without TJ Watt, it's just not going to be the same kind of pass rush. He's not the same without TJ Watt rushing against him, next to him. They have plenty of time to prepare. It's going to be in Buffalo, which is the weather's going to suck, and that's going to play the Bills' favor. And Bills Mafia is going to go absolutely nuts because let's be honest, they've got the best chance to make it to the AFC Championship game. They got a home field advantage until the Ravens, and again, the Ravens aren't perfect. So, yeah, Bills Mafia is going to be in full throat.
I'm going Bills to win. Steelers with the points in this one. Now, see, they're projecting this to be a very windy game, like over 13 miles an hour. So if you're betting out there, even though the over-under is 36.5, take the under. A lot of the games with a lot of wind you have to take the under. We saw the game a couple years ago, Bills-Patriots, I believe, with the windy conditions that really messed things up. I do think the Bills win because they can utilize Josh Allen's legs, and that'll be huge. But I think the final score might end up being like 17-10 or 17-13 or something like that. So I think the Bills will win. I think it could be even like they control the clock. They're in control of the game the whole time. But I think the Steelers will be able to keep it close just because of the weather and because their defense is pretty tough still without TJ Watt, even if it is not going to be the same elite defense that they usually have. So Bills to win, Steelers with the points. Let's move on to the 4:30 p.m. game, Cease. The Packers at Cowboys. Cowboys are at home. They are favored by 7.5, and we do have a Mike McCarthy revenge game on our hands.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going Cowboys to. I'm not even entertaining that with the Packers. In Jerry World, 7.5 points. I'm gonna go. I think the Packers keep it I think they lose by a touchdown. I think that's the reality of it. Here are the things that are happening. I think the Packers they played lesser opponents recently, but they has been playing better. Jordan Love's been pushing the ball downfield. Jaden Reed's been playing pretty well for them. And then obviously Aaron Jones has been running around like a madman back there. Cowboys are soft against the run and have shown that over the last, kind of quarter of the season. I think if Aaron Jones can get going in this game, again, it will open things up for Jordan Love and there will be opportunities for them to stay in the game. Is there a chance that maybe Jerry World so ratcheted up that they explode and win by 20 points? There it is. The Cowboys are a much more talented team. But I think there's things with Mike McCarthy that always worry me. One, clock management has been an issue through his career. Two, it's the Packers against the Cowboys, which always worries me. It doesn't worry me in this case because the Packers are nowhere near as good as the Cowboys. But I think they can make it more of a game than it should be. If it spread 6.5, I'm taking the Cowboys. But 7.5, I'm going to veer on the side of caution and pick the Packers here. But I have no doubt the Cowboys are going to win this game. It's just a question of how much and how well are they going to execute.
All right, sorry, since we lost you there a second, but yes, you took the Cowboys to win. Packers with the 7.5 point spread. I'm going to take the Cowboys to win and cover. A lot of this has to do. I think some of their offensive line will be healthier for this game. Cowboys are a dominant team at home. They beat the teams they should beat at home too. That's how it's gone all season. I do have those same concerns with Mike McCarthy clock management. I think the hope here is that there's no clock management to worry about at the end of the game, and that's something they can maybe worry about later in the playoffs. But also, I think Joe Barry's defense, there's still like X's and O's things that he does that just make no sense. And I think with a week to prepare for what they do, with a guy like CeeDee Lamb, who's no one can guard this season, I believe second in receiving yards to Tyreek Hill this year. I think they'll be able to win this game and cover. Now, back in my mind, am I still freaking out because it's the Packers? Yes. Is it freaking me out that Aaron Rodgers has done this so many times and Jordan Love looks like he could be the third straight good Packers quarterback? Yes. But I think the Cowboys can win this game for the second straight year, win a playoff game, and then we'll see what happens after that because then it gets a little bit dicey.
Also, lock of the week. If you're looking for a prop bet here, we got Tony Pollard at 61.5 rushing yards. Cowboy or one of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL. They are bottom 5. So hit that all day, folks. 61.5 Tony Pollard. They're going to have to try to run the ball, and if the Cowboys get up, he's going to get a lot of carries.
All right, put the house on that one. As we remind everyone to bet responsibly, of course. Sunday Night Football, Cease. We have another storyline here. We've had the Deshaun Watson, team against his old team. We've had, the Tua versus the Tyreek Hill return to the Chiefs and Tua and everything else. We've had the Mike McCarthy revenge game. We have the Steelers and Bills with the college roommates playing against each other, Sean McDermott and Mike Tomlin. And now we have the Matthew Stafford return to Detroit. It's going to be a fun one. Rams at the Lions. Lions currently favored by 3.
This is a hard one. Yeah, 3 is obviously a weird spread. I'll go with the Lions to win. And do I expect some kind of crazy shit to happen? I think I'm going to take I'm going to hedge it. I'm going to take the Rams with 3 points. 3.5, I'd be much more, obviously confident in it. I think it's going to be a field goal like game. I think Detroit Lions have a lot more talent on their team than the Rams do. The Rams have Aaron Donald on defense, and then they have Stafford, Nakua, Kyron Williams, and Cooper Kupp. and everything else doesn't matter. It seems like with the Rams, Sean McVay has maximized the guys, and I think that's where a lot of their struggles are going to come in this game. So, the Lions ultimately win. These teams are both kind of my dark horse guys to maybe upset in the NFC. They happen to be playing each other in the first game, but I think these guys have all the talent or the scheme. I think they've got traits that can take them off each of them. So this is probably one of the best. I'm super excited for it. Lions at home, their first game back. It'll be sad to see if Matt Stafford rips their heart out, though. It'll be sad for Detroit fans. It will be full circle and probably the most Detroit thing of all time. But I got to root and hope that the Lions win this one, but it's going to be razor thin.
This is tough because you know how much I love Sean McVay. I think he's very, very good at coaching, especially the X's and O's. But this is a Detroit home playoff game. The cursed franchise, they're going to be going nuts. A lot of the fans are probably coming out off the Michigan National Championship. They're still drunk. They're going to be drunk the whole week. They're just going to stay drunk, no work. They're pumped up for this game. I think the environment will be freaking crazy. And then you have Jared Goff. I think the revenge game is going to mean something here. They traded him away. I think they probably could have won a Super Bowl with him at quarterback. They got to the Super Bowl with him at quarterback, but they traded him away from Matt Stafford. Good for Matt Stafford to get the Super Bowl. I think he's going to play well in this game. I think the offensive line will be able to protect him. Yes, the Rams do have a lot of sacks, but a lot of them are from the interior with Aaron Donald and Kobe Turner. So I'm going to go Lions to win and cover. I think the Lions win by like a touchdown. Hopefully see some key plays down the stretch by Jared Goff. And I do think a key factor in this too is that the Lions can run the ball very well with both their running backs. Just get the ball in your playmakers' hands and they'll be able to win. So that is my pick. Monday Night Football. Still don't know if I like the fact that we have a Monday Night Football game after these years, but we do have one. It is the Eagles and the Buccaneers. Eagles favored by 3 on the road, Cease. There's a lot of question marks with injuries and the way they played, but they are favored.
I got two things before I reveal my pick. One, I can't wait until NFL gets like $200 million to have a Thursday Amazon Prime game for the first playoff game. It's going to happen. Give it 5 years. Amazon Prime, kickoff for playoffs on Thursday night, and the whole players union will be in a fucking riot. But it'll happen. Two, it seems like these Eagles Buccaneers playoff games are just, and they're always just the worst game of the playoffs. Really, one of the worst games always. We have that Tom Brady, Jalen Hurts game where basically I think it got Troy Aikman. It was so weird because Troy Aikman was so disinterested in the game, and he was so mad they didn't get the Cowboys game. It was kind of weird. So I think this is going to be another one of those. This is sad that both these teams are in the playoffs on kind of games. Like what we're breaking down here, we got Baker Mayfield who will toss the ball all over the field. I'm gonna pick the Buccaneers because honestly, as much as I think I want to pick the Eagles a lot in this game, I can't. And what's the spread? Are the Bucs favored?
The Eagles are favored by 3.
Yeah, I'll take that shit all day. Because here's what I think happens: Baker Mayfield's going to toss the ball for 300 yards. Mike Evans is going to have a field day. And I just think the Eagles' offense is in such disarray, they're just not going to keep up. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game, honestly. But the reality is it's going to be sloppy looking. It's going to be at times where it's like so-and-so just caught a 60-yard pass. But also there's going to be three and outs right after that. Chunk plays on offense on both sides and a lot of inefficient mind-blowing, head-scratching football in the in-betweens.
Yeah, I'm going Buccaneers too. I think a lot of it has to do with not just the way they played, but those injuries. Jalen Hurts dislocated his middle finger on his throwing hand. I think he might be able to stack the box against him. I just don't know how effective he's going to be. He did stay in the game for a possession before they ended up benching their starters, but I don't know. Your quarterback has that type of injury going into the playoffs. That's not a good sign. Also, I like what you said about Baker Mayfield because the Eagles secondary has been bad, and then Sidney Brown goes down. from their secondary as well. It could be bad. I think Mike Evans could have a field day. Chris Godwin could have a field day. I'll take the Buccaneers. I think if you're looking at it like on paper, like I get why Eagles are favored, but like it just doesn't make any sense to me based on how these teams have played over the last several weeks. There is maybe some rain going to be in this game, but even then, I still think the Buccaneers take this one. I think it's just Eagles just are not the team we thought they were. They're not the team that we thought they were in October. I don't think I've ever seen. We've talked about like the Jaguars having collapsed. I don't think I've seen a team. Collapse might be the wrong word for them, but like everyone thought they were a good team, and now everyone pretty much universally says this team will be lucky if they win a game in the playoffs. Like they were on pace to be number one seed, everything would be fine. They beat the Chiefs. Nick Sirianni was talking trash in the tunnel, and wow, things have changed since then. So Buccaneers for me as well. All right, Cease, any final thoughts?
No, I'm ready for my Peacock game. I can't wait to see how many times Taylor Swift is seen.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm super excited for the playoffs. And I'm telling you, 61 and a half, Tony Pollard, lock it in.
Is Taylor Swift going to be there at -1 degrees?
I mean,
Hmm.
it's a big game for Travis. I mean, what kind of girlfriend would she be if she didn't show up to one of the biggest games of the year for her boyfriend? Do they have a tour date? She better have a tour date. Somebody got to look that up.
Well, there was a story that was released this week that Travis Kelsey couldn't go to the Golden Globes with her because, quote, he had work. He had to practice because he has a job. So all the Swifties were educated about the fact that he couldn't be there. So lots of fun going on there. I'm excited for this playoff weekend. Like I mentioned, Cease, I think we're going to see a lot of good games. I'll take this at a time to remind everyone to like and subscribe as we go through with the playoffs. It'll help us get better, help us see what we're doing well. Comment on the videos. It always helps us out. Next week, we'll be back to recap the wild card round and preview the divisional round. For now, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.